Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio Africa. Oh man, it feels great to be back home as always, and I just want to give the man above the praise. Want to magnify his name. Blessed be his holy name forever. Father God, we are grateful to you. In the name of Jesus, we have given thanks. And as usual, some call him the mastermind, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Cloya Dwebler, Grand Gita County. What did no Muzu and one year mad double? No someone put on Zuguia. Grow back quick on your secret. Basi Yompo. Second way, Epelia. To you, I had you up. Yeah, I call you. Africa's media do it extraordinaire. As for the giant, the now you know me Garley. Welcome. Mr. Wadi Constant out of the markets, Syria, is in the building. Call Gloria, how are you? The man himself, Philip Password, out of Hong Kong tonight. I don't know, there's some energy to have tonight. I don't know what's going on. But listen, folks, don't be selfish now. Enjoy the show by inviting others. Share the video. Invite a few friends so that we can together have a blast tonight. Oh, man. Okay, well, folks, today is Monday, the 22nd of May, 2023, and it just doesn't get any better, you know. As always, Dr. Fisk, I'd like to say hi and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashford, and my greetings and congratulations to everyone in viewer and listening land. I hope we can have another exclusive episode of British Radio today. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts.
Yes, Mr. Garley, I think you just jinxed me. Now I can't see myself.
You can hide from yourself.
Yeah, man. Soon I was fine when I signed in.
I know. Well, perhaps as the show progresses, you know, you might find your touch. Okay, so okay, now there you go. Okay. Now, Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, I said, listen, Philip Password, do us a favor, man. If you can just donate one laptop to Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, you know, we appreciate it because you know she's the only one that keeps struggling with her camera. Mrs. Roberts, how was your weekend? Welcome to the show.
I think Philip Password is the wrong person to ask. He's a sedition.
I mean, a sedition that loves this show, so you never know, he might do something. You know.
Okay, we'll put him to the test. But I'm doing well. How's everybody?
But it's good. Tonight we might have Emmanuel Savis, an advocate out of Canada, will be popping in tonight later on in the program. We'll have a lot of burning issues to talk about. But in the meantime, it is my pleasure to present the first edition of British Editorial Commentary. It will be aired every Monday at the top of the program when the presenter will be using 2 minutes to provide a profound and critically researched analysis of what they considered the most pressing issue of the week before. And today's presenter is Dr. James T. Fisk as he presents British Editorial. But Before that, we're going to give a theme before he comes in with the editorial. Dr. Fisk, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ashford, and greetings. Our first editorial centers on the controversial topic, that's Native versus Congo. Our history began when free slaves, free people of color from the United States joined into Liberia because of the American Colonization Society, the ACS. And ACS mission was to civilize Africa, which explains why the first constitution of the settlers called other African savages that they came to civilize. This created the seed of today's division in Liberia. The ACS was abolished in 1912. Between 1822 and 1861, it resettled up to 19,000 blacks from the US. An additional 5,000 Africans were recaptured on slave ships from the Congo Basin. About 100 years later, the first census conducted by the Liberian government in 1962 showed that the Liberian population was just 1 million people. According to the World Data Information webpage, before 1975, Liberia had an annual average growth rate of about 2.5%. That is, every year the Liberian population increased by 3,000 people. Over a 100-year period, that's about 300,000 people. If you subtract this number from the 1962 census, it means that when the settlers and repatriated Africans arrived, the population of Liberia was roughly about 700,000. If you equally divided all tribes against this number, what this meant was that each had a population of about 45,000 versus roughly 25,000 who were either resettled or repatriated to Liberia. However, a segment of Liberians believe history has stood still for over 200 years. They want to continue calling the generation of settlers and repatriated Africans non-indigenous, or worse, force them to hide their identity under other tribes. According to a 2009 article by Dan Goodman, a natural or native-born citizen is one who is born with the territory of a government and subject to its jurisdiction. The 1986 Constitution of Liberia declares citizen any person, at least one of whose parents was a citizen of Liberia at the time of the person's birth. On July 25, 2022, the government also enacted the dual citizenship law. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, tribe comes from the Latin term tribus, to mean a group of persons forming a community and claiming descent from a common ancestor, or a socially cohesive unit associated with a territory, the members of which regard themselves as politically autonomous. In other words, Congo, used as an historical concept to define both the settlers and recaptured Africans, has always been a tribe, whether they knew it or not. Therefore, it is impossible to justify in the 21st century the behavior of calling only one segment of Liberians indigenous. To resolve this impasse, Congo must be designated the 17th tribe of Liberia. But until that is done, people of Congo descent must start referring to themselves as members of the Congo tribe. Such a strategy puts you on par with your fellow countrymen and women. It also destroys the stigma some continue to assign to the word Congo and creates the unity for our children yet unborn. Thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing.
Okay, that was today's editorial, and expect to see brief editorial commentary on a weekly basis, especially on Mondays. Next week, we will come back with a fresh, brand new brief editorial commentary. I just want to go around the room now. You know, Dr. Fisk mentioned something that Congo should be seen as tribe and not just the set of people, or as some would we call it the way of life. Now, Dr. Fisk, there are folks out there who come from the Congo background, and they refer to themselves as not indigenous but Congo people. So what do you say to those people? Where is that mindset coming from? You know, instead of them calling themselves, wait, listen, I'm from the Congo tribe, or but they say I am not a countryman, I am not the indigenous, I am a Congo man. What do you say to those people?
Well, the thing is, the people, it is, that statement is rooted in ignorance of the historical facts. Okay, and what is the historical fact? People were resettled in Liberia as a result of the initiative of the American Colonization Society. American Colonization Society had a number of goals. One of those goals was to come to civilize Africa, because at the time they saw Africa as a dark continent of quote unquote savages. Okay, so you would note that even the first constitution of the settlers that was written on the Mayflower, what they said is that they came to civilize the savages of Africa. But by 1912, the ACS left Liberia. There was no more ACS. However, that tendency to not understand that you people were a tribe continued to persist. Okay. Now, if you one thing and the disadvantage is that they've not understood that tribe is synonymous in Liberia with indigenous. If you are indigenous, you must be from a tribe. Okay, so by referring to yourself as just Congo and not member of the Congo tribe, which you actually are, what you've done is that you put yourself in some fake utopian situation that makes it difficult for the rest of the country to define. So people continue to look back into history. Mind you, now, Liberia has existed with the inclusion of the settlers and repatriated people jointly referred to as Congo people for the last 200 years. How do you, as someone who, because of your Congo heritage, continue to refer to yourself as non-indigenous when in fact you represent a third generation or perhaps maybe a fourth generation of those original people? I don't understand. I think it's just ignorance.
Okay, well, Idadus, do you have something? Let the books, rabbits, then we can go to our next segment.
Well, certainly, because of politics, Ashford. So we find ourselves distinguishing on the basis of indigenous or non-indigenous. But the fact remains that when you look at Africa as a whole, to the demolition of the different empires that existed in Africa, the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, Soninke Empire, Sundiata Keita, all of these different individuals. When those empires fell, tribes begin to intermarry and migrate to different places. For example, when you look at Liberia, you would see that the first original group of migrants were the Gola and the Kisi, followed by what we call the Kwa ethnic group, Basso, Kru, Kran, Gribble, Day, all these different tribes then migrated in the 12th century. So Liberia is certainly a melting pot. Unfortunately, because of slavery, some of our brothers and sisters were taken into the strange shores of America and they returned as repatriates. And therefore, because of the political dissent we have among ourselves today, we have these types of disintegration and distinctions. What is a tribe? A tribe is certainly a group of people who have shared experience of way of life, way of dressing, food, way of talking, accent, and all of these different things. So Liberia is such a melting pot. Unfortunately, politics have tended to divide us on many levels.
So do you
need to come together as one people?
That, Congo is a tribe, or should be.
I've always believed by the very definition of that word tribe, it is indeed a group of people of common culture, similar language. I stated the last time. If someone says to you, "Yano kam konjini," great deal, Yano kam konjini, can you understand that? No, it's a particular language that these people spoke, and it's kind of native to their tongue. In which, if you were to go to places like Edina, Folesville, and several other areas, and they begin to talk, you will find difficulty understanding them. Similarly, if someone who is Congo went to Grand Bassa, and I mean not to Grand Bassa, but to Grand Jide, and folks are speaking those dialects, you wouldn't understand them. You will see that there are certain foods they eat. On Sunday, people ate split peas, cabbage, collard greens. Those were foods that were native to Congo people. You know, quite frankly, indigenous to them. And like certain tribes, like for example, the Bai. The Bai people came from Malay. Malay, that's where they migrated from and settled near the in Vietnam. So we've all come from somewhere. Unfortunately, politics, people tend to want to win and separate us on the basis of tribe. But I believe tribes are quite unique and a very significant beauty of our tapestry as a nation.
And that's going to be one of the things that we would try to do here on this platform, Bridge Radio Africa, to for the not only inform and entertain the folks, we educate them as well for things that they don't know. Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Garley. Good evening to my fellow panelists, especially you, Pastor Idatu. So we had a great service. I saw
Thank you.
you briefly
Yes.
this weekend. But yes, as we stated in the beginning of this show, when you did your comeback, that was one of the issues that we talked about. I feel that as Pastor Datus and Dr. Fitz stated, it is a tribe. So it is our country that needs to make that distinction because and to a point, if you go to any of the 15 counties, is it 15? Yeah, 15 counties. There is a Congo settlement, so to speak, each place. So if you do have these people gathering together, they are a tribe. We just have overlooked it, because if you're not calling them a tribe, what are they? Are they just like mysterious people? So I want to encourage Dr. Fitz to you know carry on this conversation. I mean, we all will, but he started the talk about it being a tribe. If they're not a tribe, what are they? And so I think that's a great um point, and we need to expand on it.
Okay. Well, thank you. And when we come back, we'll look at the weekend. There was some violent attempt on at the edifice of Senator Prince Ward Johnson. Who sent who? What was the motive? We'll take a look at that when we come back. Don't go away.
Enzo, G Grace. Hems vocal, I be number one vocal, I be number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, "a new sheriff is in town," does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Ham's Vodka, Ham's Honey, Ham's Bitter, and Ham's Original Vodka. Ham's Vodka has no hangover. That's what they say, Papa drank Mama happy. Ham's Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Ham's Vodka at 0777 00 1114, 0777 000 979. We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Hans Vodka or www.hansvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Hans North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755 ASHFORD 11. Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Vodka brings out the real man in you.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and it feels great to be back again as always. I want to begin with Idatu's added. Idatu's at the weekend. We saw members of the NPP storm the edifice of Prince Ward Johnson, something that you that caused Senator Johnson not to hold service, and Senator Johnson, following that incident, had a press conference, and he was not happy, and he started pointing fingers. He went further to say that he believed it talks or hooligans was sent that Joel Howard Taylor, he accused the vice president. He also went further to accuse Len Eugene Nangwe, excuse me, and of course Jefferson Koji the board can never move a thing. I mean, he's a fine kid, pleasant looking, but I don't know why his name keeps coming out in this thing. He went further to even include the president. But let us take a snippet of this video, and then you can come here, Dadges.
Hooligans from the MPP, Joel Taylor. From what I heard, one of them say is Joel Taylor who instructed them, along with Koji, to come and disrupt the church, fight us, and warn the people. I am the target. I'll tell you something. Few days ago, I was sitting on my push, and the security came to me to say, I won't call the name, but one EPS was outside wanting to see me urgently. It was about 5 something. I came from session very late, it was Tuesday. And I said, but then he come back tomorrow, because when I said there's no job, I won't go to the capital. He said, no, I must see you now. So I said, let him come in. He came in. He said, be for your security. There's a straight order from Joel Taylor, Jefferson Koji, to hit on you, to knock you down. I said to assassinate me. He said, don't call my name. That's the plan. Beef it up. I said, okay. The last time I was threatened, and I was on VOA, and that matter was addressed. When the opposition parties got into it, intervened, and I think they drew back. But they still got a plan to carry out. And let me say this to President Weir. When I supported you, I was a Holy Ghost. When I drew back my support, now I'm a war criminal. You want to kill me. If that is your plan, you and Joel Taylor, then I will tell you, you cannot kill me. That will result to a full-scale revenge.
That will result to a full-scale revenge. When I supported you in the past, I was the Holy Ghost. When I go against you now, I am a war criminal. Idatu's at it.
Well, actually, let me first start by saying that I cannot validate whether or not Joel Howard sent these individuals. But what we do notice here is that the Coalition for Democratic Change, that happens to be now the conglomeration of the NPP and the CDC, they have a history of threatening the collective security of the opposition. Now we see them doing it to Prince Johnson on the basis of shared provocation. We know for a fact that President George Weah is consistently criticizing the opposition from his pulpit all the time. He doesn't talk to us as a people, but he talks to us from behind the pulpit. And we know that as a fact. We also see that Madam Yomli Kanga, Senator Lawrence Yomli Kanga, was having a program in Grand Bassa. They went there again and they disrupted the program. We also know that when the children of the university peacefully marched at the university, at the U.S. Embassy, they went there and brutalized them. We also know that when Talia Ure went to campaign in CDC Health area, a democratic privilege and right, she nearly lost her life. So CDC has become the symbol of gangsterism. And it's rather unfortunate that the opposition must stand together to criticize this. I'd like to use this opportunity to call on the international community to pay attention to what is happening in the country, because these are the very reasons why 15 years ago we all degenerated into war. This is a serious matter, and this is the responsibility of this government. Yekekoloba district, men were being bussed there with military implements. We saw Gray take people to the campus of the university students for a potential violence. This government must stop provoking people. If they do not want to go for elections, they can simply step down. But violence will not take it by force, because Liberians are very resolved concerning their destiny and who they want to elect. And then any and every form of intimidation will definitely not work. This is sad, and this has the propensity to destroy the peace. This makes the Farmington signing look like a complete foolishness, and government needs to act and act now. So they can say, I didn't send them, or who sent them, we're not concerned about that. But we do know that this government has a pattern of violence beginning from the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's time to now, and that needs to stop. Nobody has monopoly over violence. And Prince Johnson, at some point, when he says to them he has the capacity to mobilize men, don't overlook that. It was wrong, and it has to be stopped. We must civilly disagree in our politics and policies, but we must not be violent in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, Prince Johnson accused the Vice President, Madam Joel Howard Taylor. He went further to also accuse Len Ujinangwe and, of course, Jefferson Koji, and, of course, the President of Liberia. Now, in tomorrow's edition of the Front Page Africa, the question now is, who sent attackers on PYJ? So the legislative reporters, asked the Vice President, Joel Howard Taylor, the ex-wife of detained former President Charles Taylor. She chose to only condemn acts of violence ahead of the 2023 presidential and legislative elections and remain coiled on Sunday's incidents. You may speak. Unmute your phone, please.
Thank you, Mr. Garley. Yeah, I am appalled at such action. I was getting ready for service as well when I listened to such, I want to call it insurrection because that's what it is. Prince Johnson is a sitting senator, and so he's an authority of the government, and that's what insurrection is. They won't claim that they did it, but what I would counter to that is, to the young men or the thugs that came out saying that Prince Johnson said to come and he will come to his church, he will have people, he'll be speaking. Well, wasn't she at the Capitol when she was making her statement? I'm not sure where she was, but she was in a government building when she made the comment, if Kung is running and something happens to the president, wouldn't that be Prince Johnson? All these comments. We as regular citizens can say that. She doesn't have that leisure because of her background record. Secondly, this is a sitting senator. You can't do unto him what we the regular people do. So I think she was offensive in her utterance as well. But to have those people come and threaten not just Prince Johnson but other parishioners, that's offensive. That's against their constitutional right. They have freedom of religion, the freedom to come together and do what religious people do, and to come on a day they're having service, and you call yourself a Christian nation. Every time you turn around, the very Joel Howard Taylor is running to other countries to pray and to fast and to Jerusalem and Israel and you name it. But how come she has not condemned that act to say, no, I didn't authorize you guys to do that? So there is some truth in it, because whatever you're not part of, you will quickly condemn. And I think it's shameful, knowing her record, that she is associated with the man who brought havoc in our country, though we try to be sympathetic and not to include her as a wife because, you know, sometimes wives do not know everything husbands are doing or vice versa. But she has no authority to do what she did. And I'm very upset. What I really want to talk about is the Justice March today, where all of the people that have died mysteriously in our country, as the mother of the country, I saw her on one of the networks past about a year ago, talking about, oh, parents need to do their best to tell the children. All of us want our children, but they still go where they want to go
Thank
with
you.
their peers. So to say that is not enough. And she
Thank
needs
you,
to
Mr.
speak more
Roberts.
on national issues and stop doing all this foolishness. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Fisk, how did all this start? I mean, a week before you heard Vice President Howard uh, attacking Prince Johnson and Yeke Koluba, saying that Prince Johnson can be president. All Yeke Koluba does is ask for scratch card and ask for his benefits, and he's not even thinking about helping his community. And she went further to say that she's from District 10. So Prince Johnson wrote on his Facebook page saying, I will respond to the vice president in church on Sunday. All of a sudden, hey, his church gets attacked. Now, Dr. Fisk, just before you come in, earlier, Idatus had said no one person has monopoly or violence, meaning one person can born Christy child. But listen to what Prince Johnson before you come in.
We don't want bloodshed. I will address myself to those statements made about me by our Vice President next Sunday, where I will have 500 men. I will send it for 500 men. Civilians, but former combatants to guard me. In a country where security is at risk, we don't want to take law in our own hands. We will never, I say never, flush the country into war. But if Mr. Weir feels he has a manipulative or violence, we don't have manipulative or violence. They're all here ready to kill the GB.
Next Sunday, I will address the accusation made by the vice president, and I will have 500 men at the church. You know, and he went further to say, well, Akaras Gray went on the university campus and took some men with him. He said civilians, but they are former combatants. What does that mean, Dr. Fisk?
Well, the thing is, so Mr. Prince Johnson talked about bringing in 500 men just because I don't know whether you have the video clip so that the audience will understand how bad this thing was, because it's one thing for us to talk about how bad this was, but it's another thing for some people who've actually never seen it to see it, you know. And one thing I noticed when those people assembled and were chanting all kinds of stuff, there was no presence of the police, right? So the police is supposed to be able to provide some degree of peace. And according to the justice minister, before people go ahead and protest, they should send a letter to the justice ministry to get approval to go ahead and protest. So the fact that all of these things did not happen, and those guys were on tape saying exactly who they represented, shows a degree of acquiescence between one party on the other hand and another, that is those individuals that were sent to go and do what they did. Now, which undermines that joke of a Farmington River agreement that we talked about. I told you that whole thing was a joke, okay? And the reason why it was a joke is because in America they have a famous saying: "Follow the money." Okay, if George Weah loses his job, the Labrenpo gave George Weah a job for 6 years. He hasn't done well, so they're trying to sack him, right? If he loses his job, all that money goes away, okay? But you have to look at why they are going after Prince Johnson. The fact that Prince Johnson has endorsed Kuhn for the United Party, what it means, technically, it becomes an extreme uphill battle for CDC to win Nima County. Basically, it's almost like out. Then you go to Grand Bassa County. You have Yombly Kanga going with Unity Party, and potentially Charlene Bronsky going with Cummings. Where do you see CDC? What piece of that power will be left when Unity Party chop her own and the daughter of Bronsky chop her own? Nothing will be left for the CDC. So that's Nima that's gone. That's Grand Bassa that's gone. How about Monserrado County? The victory of Darius Dillon makes it clear that CDC is not going to wake up and just sweep Monserrado County like they may have done in the past. Okay, so there is guaranteed, almost guaranteed second round. Okay, how does we are stand in the second round? I don't see it if there's unity at that point amongst the opposition that they just need to move this guy and then they can form a coalition government, whatsoever the case may be. So, you know, when it's like CDC is basically on his dying bed and is trying to use something called in America, I call it kitchen sink strategy. Just basically throw everything and see what's going to work. But the danger with it is that they seem not to understand that this country is just from a decade plus of civil war. So in a state of nature, every human being is equal and have the potential to commit violence. That is why you have a government. All of the writers that contributed to the philosophy of that concept understood that in the absence of government, you have mayhem. So now you have a situation where people are walking up to other people's premises and doing these things. Like we said from the onset, this election may not go on as peaceably as a number of people anticipate. And it's about time that Liberians woke up, because what we saw in Sudan is that the international community stepped back, even in Rwanda, stepped back a little bit to allow things to calm down even before they could come in. So potentially a lot of people could lose their lives because people want to be irresponsible and not wanting to follow the rules of government.
Well, Idatus, I know Prince Johnson has his right, all right, and Article 14 in the Constitution protects him. But somebody on the outside looking would say, "Why now? Why? Because is this because of self-interest?" And Prince Johnson seeks only things that matter to him. It's all about himself and not others. This guy is all for Prince Johnson. What happened to the 4 auditors that died? Why didn't he have a press conference? What happened to his own, hold on? What happened to his own niece? Pressure. What happened to the 3 missing boys that end up dead now? Melvin Early. You know what saw Prince Johnson having a press conference? Prince Johnson only spoke to those things when he parted ways with George Weah. That's when he started telling people that the person that killed Marvin Elliott was a woman, and went further to say Fina Bondo. What happened in the past? If he claims to be a man of peace, a renowned evangelist now, a man of God, why hasn't he said anything about those people that got killed in the past? Come on, Idatus.
So if you know anything about Prince Johnson, he's historically documented, stating to George Weah that if he rigs this election, it's a potential for problems. So one of the things that we often do is when we are criticizing one wrong, and then we tend to juxtapose another wrong that then mislead people in a form of distraction. What we're discussing here is the fact that Prince Johnson was potentially, his rights were violated. And that violation had the propensity to disrupt our peace and stability. So the fact that they didn't criticize the deaths of the people that you've mentioned, we are not creating any type of equivocation here to justify whether or not he's selfish or he's not selfish. The fact remains, as a people on this platform, a wrong was done, and we must be able to criticize that wrong. And believe you me, I will state publicly for the record that if Boyka becomes president of Liberia, we must also be able to speak truth to power very comfortably. And this is all we've been trying to do for this government to understand that, listen, Liberia can be a better nation under your leadership. These types of interaction politically, they're not healthy for the country. Liberians are being re-traumatized every time they hear about an extrajudicial killing. Every time there's violence in the country, we are being re-traumatized. We don't want to go back to war, and this needs to stop. Do you really think that people are happy when Prince Johnson said, if this continues, I will bring 500 men? Do you know what that triggers in the minds of those of us who lived through the war, and what that means for the people of Liberia? That is dangerous. They're already under very serious poverty. They're trying to find food to eat. And worst of all, their security now is being threatened by those who are in power, expected to protect them by all means. This is sad for the country, and it has to stop. And I'm really hoping that the U.S. ambassador will make a serious call to this government for them to cease the violence. I'm really hoping that ECOWAS is paying attention. I'm really hoping that the AU, the African Union, is paying attention, and they need to act and act now, because we do not want to regress. We do not want to go back to a place where we are pointing each other out and people are being summarily executed only because of political power. We can disagree politically. We can have a substantive interview, but let us be careful. We can't hate each other because of power.
I know you're talking about the situation at hand here, but in journalism, there's something called the backstory. You're talking about war criminal here, like ex-rebel, somebody who killed people in broad daylight, somebody who is on tip killing the sitting president. So, I mean, when he is in the news, you have to go to the backstory. It's like you're being subpoenaed by the court for somebody stealing from you. First of all, when you get they're going to ask you about your place of birth and everything. So Prince Johnson being the news, I mean, he's a newsmaker. So we have to go back and talk about what he did in the past and bring it up to the current. Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts.
And that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
That's absolutely fine. But the false equivocation is a wrong was done that jeopardizes the peace and stability of the greater good of the country. So if we're speaking to that wrong and you say, oh, he's a war criminal, then this is what happens. You have entered a slippery slope. The question becomes, was Madam Joel Taylor the wife by that generalization? Was Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf also a sponsor of the war? Is it true that President George Weah bought arms from Model, according to Mr. Alexander Cummings? So you're going down a very slippery slope by this generalization. And therefore, once you start painting that brush of generalization as a war criminal, who else can we name as war criminals that are currently running for the presidency of Liberia? Where is George Boley? He's representing Grand Jita, your county. Thank you.
And again, that includes everybody.
Yeah.
Mrs. Roberts. Well, I will go to Mrs. Roberts and then Fisk. Then we'll bring in our special guest. Go on, Mrs. Roberts.
Yes. It's again, you can't separate the two, the character and the past of the person. You have to, intertwine them. So, like I spoke to Joel Howard Taylor, the audacity of her to have done, or if allegedly send these gentlemen or these thugs, because some of them were in military gear and they looked like they were ready to fight, as the CDC says they will. So we are talking to her as the mother of the country, who was then married to someone who brought havoc on our country. So to see that, just as you stated, brings fear to our people, because these are people who are familiar with what to do, how to bring it, or possible have just a phone call. Who knows? Maybe Taylor called her and say, you know what, you need to do this, you need to do that. Okay, these are, even though they're all working in the same space, they are still rivals, because just from the utterance of Prince Johnson, he started talking up things that some of us didn't know. Central Bank was in her house. That's big. Arms, taking 15 suitcases of money across. So these people have the political will to do whatever they want to do, and they said, and when I heard this happening yesterday, all I could think of was the parable when two elephants fight. It's the ground that suffers. And that's what our people would be doing. I'm sure those people in that area yesterday were petrified, okay, to be in service and someone's doing this. What if they can do it here? They can come to our homes. So yeah, we can't just leave one thing and they're all intertwined. Prince Johnson, yes, he only speaks on issues when it affects him. I agree on that.
You know, and you know whether these people are just playing with the minds of the Liberian people, we still don't know. You know, Prince Johnson supports Joseph Juma Boycott now, and they all see him as a good man, a Lord in gospel. Let me bring him up, brother, the Dr. Fisk, and then we'll introduce our special guest.
I mean, the only thing I can wrap up by saying is this: Mr. Prince Johnson is currently a senator. Okay, and the reason why countries are successful is because you have good laws that are implemented, and laws are created by legislators, right? So if you have the legislator who is supposed to create law telling you that I will revert to the use of my own private army to provide me with defense, then it says a lot about the ongoing evolution of the collapse of the system as we head towards an election. And like John, others who've said it already, that international and national stakeholders need to start sitting up and paying attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we want to introduce an advocate, our special guest, professional journalist turned advocate, and he's been in the news for many years now, trying to advocate for war and economic crimes in our country. He went to Liberia for several years in the month of March to advocate for uh, closure on relatives that were murdered during the war. He is a victim, and he's here this afternoon to chime in on the topic. But just before he comes in, let us take a listen to Vice President Joy Howard.
The impact of the war on Sierra Leoneans, when you look at the level of harm that was done to civilians, the cutting off of the arms and legs of civilians, it's a very sad thing. And as First Lady, I want to say that I still don't see the connection of how he could be held responsible for those things done in Sierra Leone when they were actually done by Sierra Leonean armed forces. I'm sorry that things happened the way they did in Sierra Leone, but it's hard to be responsible for rape in Liberia and someone gets raped in Sierra Leone. And these are some of the issues, rape and torture, that he was not personally involved with. As a layperson sitting outside and watching the trial, I didn't see that clear indication without a reasonable doubt that this person was involved. I don't think he should be held responsible for problems in Sierra Leone. However, if you talk about the crisis in Liberia, for which he was head of, then that's a different story. Our country has gone through a very difficult process. There is still much left to be done. Our country is still not reconciled. I do not think a war crimes code for Liberia would be the best thing.
I do not think a war crime code for Liberia will be the best thing, but she is being accused of sending people to Prince Johnson's church, and they are chanting war crime code. But this woman is saying she doesn't think war crime.
Exactly.
People have been attacked, including you, Emmanuel Savage. Please.
My old big brother, ASHFORD GARLEY. Thank you for inviting me there. And hello to every one of you on the panel here. I appreciate the whole thing. I haven't been on here for a while, but thank you. I just listened to Joa. I've listened to that before. I think there's some admittance when she was interviewed that her husband should not be responsible for what happened in Sierra Leone. But when it comes to Liberia, she said it's a different story. So she's admitting But she doesn't think there should be a war crimes court because she understands her husband would be guilty. She'll be pulled right into the bucket, and that's the reason why she doesn't want it. And that's the reason why they have a show power. Look, Jewel Howard Taylor continued to be a Taylor for a reason. She understands the power in the name in Liberia. These people who are into politics that are with these warlords, they all have some sort of association. I heard Ashford saying there must be some game going on. For sure, there are games going on. Look, let me tell you my experience when I went to Liberia briefly before. If you want to know anything else, you can ask. We wrote every political party that we know will be vying for the presidency in 2023, that we wanted to meet them on the issue of discussing war crimes code. We were only entertained by two candidates, Tiawan Gonglo and Alexander B. Cummins. Not that we're saying these people are God in our politics, but they entertain us, and they themselves profess that they want war crimes code for Liberia. No other political party. As you know, the CDC alone, the NPP, did arrest us. Gaddafi, that fought for the NPP, was the guy who brutally beat me, along with Seward Briggs, that fought for the MPFL. They don't want war crimes code. Georgia was upstairs at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where his office is, and he was more than happy to see me go through a treatment like that. In fact, there was a press release that was later released that I was being forwarded to court for persecution. So these people don't want war crimes code, my brother. They don't want it. They know what that would mean for them in our country.
Well, you watched, I don't know if you were by the site on television, the social media, Prince Johnson accused Joel Howard Taylor, Eugene Nangbe, and of course the president, including Jefferson Kochi, of attacking him, sending talks at his church to attack him. What do you know so far, Emmanuel?
So here's what I know, and here's what I've observed over the years that I've observed Liberian politics. They all know everything about each other. Corruption is like a bubble. They're all in it, whether they are killing for it, whether they are economically killing others or using guns. They all understand what they're doing. As you can see, Prince Johnson has. There are others in politics right now that criticize Prince Johnson that are now protecting Prince Johnson. We experienced the same thing with the CDC when he was protected by the Unity Party. And now, when CDC had him and protected him, the Unity Party is back on base to protect him. He's been a kingmaker in Liberian politics. So let's not forget this. We think he's powerful. He's won 2 elections in Nima. He's been a kingmaker, and I've made Ellen president twice. He made George Weah president once, and he's ready to make the next president. We're not going to argue that because there is a possibility. However, when we speak of Prince Johnson atrocities to Liberia, it's glaring. We've seen it. He recorded his crimes himself. What is really bothering every one of us seeking justice is how much people are willing to protect Prince Johnson. Today, the Unity Party is protecting him. Prince Johnson tell you that Central Brand was in Joel Howard Taylor's house. You better believe that. And Joel Howard tells you that Prince Johnson were killing human beings and breaking Euro Bank and stealing millions of dollars. You better believe that. They know what they're doing. They are accusing each other correctly. They have been killing individuals in that country. The only reason why Liberian politics continue to bless them is because every time they leave one end and they have had their fall with one end, they tie the knot with another end. And that's what they've been doing for so many years. And that is exactly what Prince Johnson is doing. But who in Liberia do not know that Prince Johnson crimes are visible? Who?
Okay, well, let me go around the room. Before I bring in Ida to start it, let us take a listen to this clown as he sprues at stupidity.
President Diamond Slanger for Spoon FM.
Yeah.
The speech caused a lot of uproar in Liberia, especially with the portion that had to do with the War Crimes Court, where you made Liberia's case. What should Liberians expect from that particular portion?
But
of the speech?
I just stated, I don't understand what you want. Since we came to power, I've not one day called for War Crime Court. You, the journalists, call for War Crime Court. Liberians are calling for War Crime Court. Both the victims and the perpetrators are calling for War Crime Court. What I did is to explain to them why now. So if you don't understand my English, then you need to go back to the speech and then you read it well. You calling for War Crime Court, I say now why this time? When we have an economic issue, we're trying to develop our country, why focus on the War Crime Code now? Why you did not focus on it 12 years ago? And those people that were part of the entire process of what happened to us, they led the 12 years. So what now? Is that what you want? Okay, then we send it to the legislature. And then so Liberian can talk about it. I think it's important. So I want to give you an opportunity. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it instead of every day disturbing the peace of this country. So now you have a reason now to go and sit in your Palawa hut, put a process together now so you can sit down. So the perpetrator and the victim can meet. So those that have opinions can come to see what need to be done.
You know, politicians are very, very dangerous people. You know, before this guy became president, he was all about talking about change, talking about corruption, war crime, and economic crime. Today, he protects the former president, and when he won, Prince Johnson was protected. Now they are local head. He has decided.
You know, Ashford, I'm so glad that you played that video because I hope my brother Philip Pasua saw his own president telling the whole world that, listen, why now? Will that destabilize our peace and unity? He is more in for not a retributive justice, but one that is reconciliatory. We clearly see that he has, in fact, postponed the presence of the War and Economic Crimes Court. Unlike George Weah, President George Weah, all of the members of the opposition, a correction which I want to provide for Mr. Savage, all of the members of the opposition, Joseph Boyka, Alexander Cummings, Gongolo, Dr. Harry F. Moneyba, all right, Benin Yuri, they've all called for War Crimes Court on the record. But the video you just saw is our president who lacks the political will to institute and put pressure. Instead, he says, why now? That statement remains indicative of a president who doesn't politically find it feasible to do a war crime court. Why? Because he was in bed politically with his predecessor and now out of sync with Prince Johnson. So now he's called a murderer. You know, I met a young lady whose father was beheaded by the LPC with a power saw. And that young lady shared her story with me, and I was very disappointed. I was shocked. I was sad. Predominantly, which tribe ran the LPC? The Crown tribe. Predominantly, which tribe put babies in the well when the war was in Nimba? The Crown tribe. When they came back as a revenge, the Gills took a reprisal on everybody from Nimba. When it became time for us to find peace through elections, the international community gave us political warring parties to become political parties, and we voted for them in the interest of peace. May I remind this panel, the Cotonou Accord, Section G, Article 19, exempted these individuals, granted them amnesty. The CPA, in effect, institute a portion that allowed them to have the TRC. It was never implemented 12 years ago under this leadership of President George Weah. He's just told us, as our president, what is it that you want? Why under my leadership, you guys are asking for something that has the propensity to destabilize our country? Why you didn't ask 12 years ago under Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, or you're asking under me? Whether or not we want it, Liberians want War and Economic Crimes Court. I want War and Economic Crime Court to be executed in Liberia peacefully, but don't make one individual as a stooge for this issue, because there are several lurking in the government. Thank
Let's
you.
let's Bruce Roberts, Dr. Face. Then we'll go back to our guest, Mrs. Roberts.
Yes, I want to say good evening, Mr. Chavez. Welcome to Radio Africa. Thank you for all you do. I didn't hear you or see you this March. Go out to your annual march. But thank you again for advocating. As Pastor Datu said, everyone wants war. Most people, well, not everyone, but most people do want war and economics crimes court. And this is not just for charade or just to make people feel bad. It is a good thing for the country. We want to show that something happened between us and we want to talk about it. And because we have not done that, this is why our country is in a chaos. No one is, accountable. No one has come and said, I'm so sorry. I had to do that because I had to. Just as Prince Johnson, gives excuse for himself. There were so many people that may have participated unwillingly but had to do it because they were recruited. You're a young, healthy man. Somebody says you have to come do this, or I will shoot you. You jump. They put you, not even jump. They put people in the trucks from the stories that I've heard and took them out to to um to 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 um to create havoc on other Liberians. So, and when we do this war crimes court, it will also be a way of reconciliation and having a memorial, something that we'll annually look at. We have all these crazy holidays and we do nothing during the war period. Even let's say from the months, because I know it started in December 1989. I remember that so well because I too, my elder sister, were about to travel to celebrate our grandmother's 100th birthday. That's when the war started. So nothing, no time period, nothing, nobody accountable, and so everybody's pointing at each other. When are we going to come to some kind of peaceable um end to this?
Dr. Fish.
Well, the thing I would say about this, just in response to Reverend Ade talked about, the Cotonou Accord and some other international agreements that which have basically shielded the likes of Prince Johnson from justice. We need to understand that in a number of places, there's no statutory limitation on certain kinds of crime. And one of those crimes should be taking of an innocent life. Okay. I heard some gruesome stories about war as well. Okay. But what we have seen, I mean, to some extent, Mr. Weir is right. When you had all of the international apparatus in Liberia for the 12 years under Ellen, it made sense if Liberians clamored for a war crime group. That was the reasonable time to have it, but it never happened. However, Mr. Weir and the CEC, they have this, they've taken over power, but they continue to think in an opposition mindset. So every time they are confronted with any issue pertaining to leadership, instead of trying to, in an existential way, address the problem, they always go back, always make reference. And you don't run up. I mean, if you felt, I will always say this, if you felt that the issues were insurmountable, you should not have gone in for leadership. You should have sat on the sidelines. But the fact that you decided to take leadership, it meant that if Ellie did not do the work, it was incumbent upon you now as the president of Liberia, elected by the people, to do the work. Okay, so your excuse can be Ellie. Okay, so now, what we have to grapple with, politicians are politicians, like Ashford said. Okay, even though there was a time Waka, according to the Reverend, called for a war crimes court. I asked that time and I will ask now, And Mr. Waka said he had to dance with the devil. In practical term, what does that statement mean? Does it mean that Mr. Bwaka, even though he may have had the inclination to implement the war crimes code, may now have a different take just because as a result of the acquiescence or the cooperation of Prince Johnson, he could potentially become president of Liberia? It's something we need to consider very seriously. Because today it is George Weah, it is effectiveness of leadership that has delayed the war crime. Can we, with certainty, say that the establishment of a war crimes court, okay, to address the heinous crimes that were created, to revise the Cotonou and all of those things so that people will get justice? Can we say that these are things that Waka will be prepared to pursue? Okay, and I just want to wrap up by saying, my hats off to the service. I followed your story when you were in Liberia, and including how you were cruelly treated, and then how you had to leave the country. So it was heroic on your part, and I think you need to be commended. Thank you,
Mr. Savage.
Thank you very much, Dr. James. I just listened to the president when he returned from the United Nations General Assembly. I'm glad you played that speech because that speech was a speech that gave hope to everyone that wanted justice in Liberia. That is the reason why I don't believe in another person leading, why another person pretending to lead. And that's the case of George Weah. I think we got a president that did not understand his own speech. He came back and could not defend what he read at the United Nations General Assembly. It was very sad for all of us justice campaigners and even victims of the Civil War, because the president went and made a case for justice, and I thought he was seeking help from his international partners so that they can finally be justice administered in Liberia, or at least a pathway to justice, so that people can pay for past crimes. But unfortunately, when the president returned, the president made it look like he did not even read the speech on our behalf. And you see who was clapping in the back, like Gil, all those guys that have become a millionaire overnight. They were the one. And that's why, personally, I don't like the George Weah presidency, because he's not the one leading. He doesn't know what he's doing. And you know what? You can come at me. You come at a truth any way you want to. I know this for a fact. We have a president that does not understand what he is doing. You, ASHFORD GARLEY, or anyone on this panel, will not go to the United Nations, deliver such a speech, come back to journalists, local journalists, and pretend like you're not calling for it. You know, and I'm not glad that you use agitate describing the president in a way that he shouldn't. But the truth is that's what the president has been portraying so far. You know, a little bit of mental health as well. Like, why you come from the United Nations General Assembly and then in the end tell us that I don't care about I send it to the legislature? Like, what do you mean you send it to the legislature? Look, we die in our country in our numbers. And today we have to talk about justice with kids that did not experience the war. So they don't even understand what our generation went through. They see Liberia the way it is, they know no better. So they're going to argue with us, they're going to debate the issues with us, not in a way that they will reason, but in a way they know. We can't blame them. That's why the education is low, because they don't want people to think for themselves. There'll be no reasoning. And that's why today we have President George Weah. Because if our reasoning was any better than what it is at this point in our majority, George Weah would not be close to the presidency. And just to conclude on this issue, it is more of George Weah wanting imperialism to continue, because it gave rise to corruption. It gave rise to other things that others did before, because politics in Liberia is about time, our time. You know, Ellen did it, Taylor did it, Robert Joe did it. Now, what are we going to do? Are we going to change things? It's our time And so George Weah knows that it's his time. It's the time of his gains to steal the people money, and that's what they've been doing. And just to comment on the Reverend issue of holistic justice, I agree with you. Prince Justice is not being targeted yet, but Prince Justice is the start of the Civil War. If we had Taylor sitting in Liberia right now, he probably would be the man whose name we call the most. Prince Justice will not be far behind because he documented his own crimes. So Prince Justice is not being picked up. Look, Ellen Johnson certainly supported the war, which looked like, oh, George Bullitt supported the war and killed people. We should go after him. Every politician or warlord that did something to the Liberian people that affected their lives, crimes against humanity, we need to address it. And on the issue of the cultural and call up where our rights ends, where our law ends, international law begins. You cannot commit crimes against humanity and organize yourself and say, we're granting ourselves amnesty. That's wrong. And that is not what we're going to consider in Liberia. At some point, there will be justice. And that is why Liberians United for Justice and Accountability with limited resources went into Liberia and made sure we collected signature. We acquired 305 signatures and submitted it to not just the United Nations, but the U.S. Congress, because we know we have a legislature that don't care about justice. They won't. That even those who call for justice will not care about justice when it comes to their political survival. For example, and that's why Emmanuel Sabe has no friend in the government. Let me say something here. About 3 months, or 6 months, or 9 months ago, or maybe a year, you heard DeLong calling for war crimes going in a bit of fight with Prince Johnson. Today, they are in the same room discussing how they can win the presidency. Yesterday, you heard George Weah, Moba Molu, Jefferson Kochi calling for war crimes court. We have seen them support Prince Johnson and all other warlords for about 6 years.
And Buffer Chambers.
Buffer Chambers is the worst one because I have some personal experience with him when I went to his office. These are people who live on society that do not have laws. And that's why they keep Liberia the way it is. Now, the sad part is, ordinary citizen thing, we have folks coming in to fix the country. This person is good, this person is bad. Look, in the absence of justice, everybody's bad. That's what we communicating to everyone. Look, we can preach how good we are as humans. In the absence of law, the man with muscle survives. The man with muscle who see you driving your Lamborghini, if he can get it out of you, he will get it out of you. And that's the problem we've been facing. We don't want justice. We want to fight it on the things that they are trying on right now. People are illiterate. Ignorance is high. And that's what they appreciate. And that's why the quality of education is low. And this is why we continue to have this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Just before we take leave of you, what is your next move? I mean, we haven't heard from you in a while now since your annual March visit to Liberia in the request for war and economic crime court. You've been quiet since the last ruffle with the government.
As a matter of fact, justice campaigners were in a meeting yesterday for about 3 hours. There have been some progress through the United States Embassy and, of course, Congress. Yesterday, we made sure that we have letters from all the senators, representatives in America. We have been speaking to folks that we know can help us ensure that justice is in Liberia. It's not going to come from within Liberia. That's what we know. We know that tomorrow presidency may not even care about us. Here are we today. Prince Johnson is again with the United Party. Who knows? Tomorrow, Prince Johnson could wake up and George Weah could bribe him a few $100,000, and he's been telling us how Black Guy should be thankful to George Weah for saving his life. We've seen this story back and forth. That's why I think politics in Liberia, for those who vomit and lick it, And that's what been continuing. So we're not going to get justice from within. We can only get justice if we ask the Americans for justice. And that's the sad part. If the Americans decide not to administer justice in Liberia, Liberians politicians will not administer justice. And I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. When we went to Liberia, we wrote almost every politician we know would be vying for the presidency in 2023. Boyka, who we know could be a potential president of the Republic of Liberia, was written. Alexander Cummings, and of course, Tiawan Gongo, Benana Yuri, they were all written. We did not get audience with any of these politicians except for Alexander Cummings and Tiawan Gongo. And not that I'm trying to tell Liberians these are the people that are going to bring you justice. All I'm saying, those are the people who gave us audience to talk about justice and promise that under their administration, there will be justice. The rest didn't care. The UP government did not care for 12 years, and we don't trust that they will care for the next 6 years, especially with the collaboration that we have seen. And we are very much disturbed by the fact that even if Prince Johnson is not with the UP, another political party will give him a home. So we have turned to the United States government. We want to make sure that they continue to know that we have not gotten justice. Other countries in Africa have. The Sierra Leone next door did. In fact, they made sure that no war laws contested any position in Sierra Leone. In Liberia is a different story. Until we can change this, until we can prioritize justice, we will talk from A to Z, from one to the last number that we never find. There will never be good governance in Liberia. And if we don't realize that, we can speak politically in any way possible, win people over intellectually, or scare them with the arm and our muscles. And Liberia will continue to be on the path that it's on. We'll go downward, and we will never have the progress that we need in the country.
So actually, let me respond to something real quickly. 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Savis, from what you just stated, you said only Alexander Cummings sat down with you as well as Tiawan Gongo, correct?
Correct.
And that has formed your opinion that these are the only two people who are serious for war crimes court because they sat down with you?
No, never said that.
Well, you said these were the only two people you met with.
Yeah,
I give you a commitment.
I did not form an opinion that they are the only two people serious about justice. I'm telling
that's precisely what you just stated. You said because you met with these two people, it appears that they're the only two people.
No.
All right.
No,
okay.
You don't even tell me what I said. What I'm saying is,
okay,
the butt of the politicians don't even care to see us. Look, even Alexander Cummings or Tiawan Gongo could see us tomorrow, but don't really care. George, we have talked about justice. He doesn't care right now. So who am I to say this person cares? No, I'm just telling you from my experience, the majority of the politicians didn't even want to talk about that subject.
Okay. So at least it's clear that for the record, all of the members of all of the major oppositions are on record stating that they want war crimes court. For the record, all of the major opposition, Alexander Cummings, Joseph Boyka, Tiawan Gongo, Dr. Harry F. Monimba, the entire opposition, including.
So that is, what do you then say about this allegation that Mr. Boyka was asked, are you ready to dance with the devil? And in this case, the devil in the picture was Prince Johnson. And he said, quote, if dancing with the devil would give me the presidency, I would dance with the devil. If dancing with the devil would make me win the election, I would dance with the devil. So do you expect
okay. So Ashford. So Ashford, we are talking politics. The person who asked the question assumed that Prince Johnson was the VP. So that sarcasm was retorted with another sarcasm. And that's what happened. Because Prince Johnson is not the VP of Joseph Boyka. So the person who asked that question was wrong to assume that selecting Jeremiah Kuhn was the devil. So that person that asked the question got that response as was reported in the newspaper. So the question becomes,
so
just 1 second, boss. Just
Go
1
ahead.
second, boss. So the question becomes, when Alexander Cummings pursued Jeremiah Kuhn, was he dancing with the devil? Because Joseph Boyka pursued Jeremiah Kuhn, does that mean he's dancing with the devil? Was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf dancing with the devil when she looked for the support of Prince Johnson? Was George Weah dancing with the devil when he solicited the coronation of Mr. Prince Johnson to win the elections?
Yeah.
So let's be clear, politics has its own twin bedfellows, or that mixed twin bedfellows. So nobody here is supporting
So
or
are you
anti-war crime court.
justifying that Prince Johnson was a bad man to Joseph Boyka and Unity Party, and today Prince Johnson is all that law and gospel? Is that what you're saying?
No, unfortunately, that's your interpretation. I'm saying to you, I'm pointing out the hypocrisy. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy of those who are calling him the devil now when they interacted with him as the angel. So it makes no sense to play double standard when this young man coronated you.
Because we are the Ellen, the Cummings, they all attempted or they all danced with the devil in the past. So it is your time now to dance with the devil. Is that what you're saying?
No, we are no. We are not dancing with the devil. We selected Jeremiah Kuhn. We did not select Prince Johnson. We selected Jeremiah Kuhn.
Listen,
From
Prince
what party?
Johnson was the one on record saying that Jeremiah Kuhn would be rescued too, and rescue 2 is coming from Libya. So Prince Johnson was the one that made that selection. So what are you talking about, Mr. Adi?
No. Prince Johnson and not Prince Johnson's party as an institution made a selection, and the Honorable Joseph Boyka selected Jeremiah Kuhn. All right, so love him or hate him, unfortunately, he's part of our political fabric. So until we bring a war crimes court to isolate these people from the political fabric or tapestry of our country, then we can have a clean slate where we will no longer be selecting people from political institution that was once upon a time a warring party. So until you institute the war crimes court, which this government has the potential and capacity to do but has not yet done it, all of what we're doing is just politics, and we're wasting our time because these individuals are embedded within the political culture, tapestry, foundation, since the 15-year civil crisis. So let's bring about the war crimes court and let's have them isolated or face justice for that problem.
They are all hypocritical. You know,
Yeah.
That's what I would say. You know, because if it favors you in their breath, you support it, but if it's against you, then you turn against it. It's just not fair. At the end of the day, Liberia has just become the big hobo joke, you know, and she has been for the longest. You know, they come and use Liberia. Liberia have always been there for you, you know, and in the end, what does Liberia get? Nothing.
Absolutely.
But Mr. Garley.
Yeah, we're gonna go to the telephone line.
Garley,
Hold on, Mrs. Robert. Let me just announce the telephone number, then you can continue. The telephone number to call is 267-240-1549. 267-240-1549. I believe we have a caller, but go ahead, Mrs. Roberts, and then we'll go to the telephone line.
Yes. In reference to the War and Economics Crimes Court, I saw today the young people and few other people in the press come out to memorialize the few people that have been killed mysteriously, or who they feel their death has not been investigated properly. And in listening, I heard the gentleman in charge of the Justice Forum say that they're writing and they're going to go to Nigeria to the ECOWAS court to plead that they get justice, and that these people that have perpetrated these crimes, such as what's the guy name with Odell Sherman, that he's currently running for office, and such people should not be running for office when they have tinted characters. Someone died on your premises, and from what I heard, that wasn't the first or second or third person. And there's no resolution to these cases. And this guy has not been even held or prosecuted, for lack of a better word. So, you know, Liberia has an issue, and until we come to some kind of create some good leader that will say, let's listen, let's do something, even if we don't put people in jail, but let's hear these people out. When you talk about issues, it heals your soul, it heals your heart. And that's what I want to say. We can't just keep talking about this issue and getting no result.
Thank you. The 267-240-1549. We have a caller on the line. Hello, caller. Tell us your name, please.
Yeah, Mr. Garland, thanks for having me. My name is Anthony again, calling from the West Coast of the United States.
Yeah, you live.
I want to make a statement, and I think most often people, try to get this kind of narrative or as though it's a good thing. Oh, Mr. Cummings tried to get Jeremiah Kum, so it's okay that Mr. Cummings that tried to get Jeremiah Kum. Why is it not a problem? Well, no one applies for the VP position. VP picks are shortlisted, and when you are placed on the shortlist, does not necessarily mean that you are picked. It was a political strategy from us in the ANC that we want the other side to go that direction, and you took the bait. So left with their decision. We know what we were doing. We are new political party, faster growing political party in Liberia. We don't know politics, we are internet politicians. Fine. But on the 27th of May, this Saturday, Liberia will experience something, and that trajectory will take us to the finish line. Ben Johnson and other people that have been bullying people. Ben Johnson, you were attacked at your church because you used the church to bully people. Just like President Weah, instead of preaching the gospel, you use that pulpit to bully people. Remember now, if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. So the same pulpit you used to bully people was the king. Why? The same Ben Johnson said he doesn't want war. But he's telling people you will bring 500 President Weah, who is the sitting president of Liberia, doesn't have 500 men protecting you right now. And you say you're going to bring 500 people? This is not 1990, this is 2023. Liberia, the war is more sophisticated now. Try bringing your 500 men and see what it is now. Some of us that know technology, we were trying.
Thank you. Some of us that know technology will apply it. Well, again, Mr. Cyrus, we want to say thanks for honoring our call tonight, and always this is your platform, and look forward to seeing you some other time.
Thank you very much, ASHFORD. I was glad having a conversation with every one of you on this panel. Thank you so much. Keep talking about Liberia. I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. Now, Dr. Fisk, help us get something here. Alexander Cummings, this in the news this weekend, I'm told, will be naming his running mate, and the name is already out there. But one of the things that people continue to talk about is this bowl of rice. This bowl of rice that is out there. Let's see if we can get Mr. Cummings to talk about this bowl of rice, and then you can come in and we can go around it just before we leave tonight. This bowl of rice, huh? Okay.
The kinds of things we need to do, and I will explain why and how they are connected to unification, is the first thing we got to do that will help unify us is we have to grow the economy, to grow the economic pie, or grow this bowl of rice. And if you give me about 90 seconds here, 120 seconds, let me explain what that means. We all eat from this bowl of rice, or maybe you eat fufu or GB or doma, wherever you eat, right? If that bowl of rice is growing and every Liberian believes and actually have a right to put their hand in that bowl of rice, it will help with the divisions. Because what happens now when the bowl of rice is not growing or is getting smaller, it's human nature that you first of all protect yourself, then your family, then your tribe, and so on and so forth. If we're growing the economy, if we're creating jobs, if we're paying people a living wage, and they know that their children and their brothers and their cousins and their tribes and everybody have a right to participate in that, many of these divisions will fall away. Because now you're not worried about whether the person, your fellow Christian or your fellow Muslim or your fellow Gribble, Crown, Gio, you're not worried about that because the bowl of rice is growing. There are opportunities for everybody. And if we begin to do that, it will help to unify us as a people and as a country.
I want to say the big thanks to SKTV for that clip. Would not go to Dr. Fisk.
Well, I mean, now that it is clear from what he said that he was not in any way specifically targeting any group of Liberian, any one specific group of Liberians, but was just kind of interesting listening to him when he was trying to list, he may not have had the opportunity to list all 16 tribes, but it's just that, like, from the onset of the editorial, one tribe continues to be left out of that list of tribes in Liberia. But I think I commend him for that statement that the country is going to prosper if we target the most important issue facing Liberia, which is job creation. Okay. And the reason for that is that at the end of the day, you need to be able to give relevance to your currency. You need to be able to have people become hopeful rather than hopeless. Because when people become hopeless and have no avenue to an income, they do end up doing some of the things that we saw at Prince Johnson Church, where people come in and just cause some noise because they want some fast dollar. So yeah, I think it's a good statement that he made, and I would leave it at that. That was a good statement.
That is the Board of Rights is, I think, according to that which of course I share the same view, is that as long as you're willing to abide by the rules and you're willing to work hard, you will have a space when it comes to the Board of Rights. What is your take?
I think it's certainly a good idea in light of his vision for the economy and job opportunities. But when you look at the ambassador Joseph Boyka, he wants a farm where every Liberian can have an opportunity to sow in his own country. Let me finish, Mr. Gordon, let me finish. Mr. Gordon, let me finish. I just told you, I certainly appreciate his concept of the bowl of rice where every Liberian can dip into. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at Joseph Boyka's concept, he wants a farm where every Liberian can have an opportunity to invest, sow, and also enjoy from the harvest. A farm is much larger than a bowl of rice. And that is why we have 5 pillars: agriculture, roads, education, sanitation, and tourism, because Liberians can have a stake in their own country. A bowl of rice is something that is already cooked and you eat from. But he wants Liberians to be able to be investors in their own country and also reap the harvest from the seed if made.
Mrs. Lady Brooks Roberts.
Yes, I like how Pastor Adi pivoted with Mr. Cummins saying, for me, while it's true, a bowl of rice is already cooked, but it is not about the farm or just a bowl of rice. He's being at the simplest, where people can understand. As you know, some of our people don't have understand things the way you may. So he brings it to the simplest level that anybody, even the market woman who may not have gone to school and understand the complexity of a big farm and all that stuff, but understands that sometimes she and her kids have to eat from a bowl of rice. So when they're eating, if a child is a slower eater, of course he will eat less. If a child is a faster eater, he will eat more. And so that analogy is to say it's based on your ability, right? what you can do, how fast you can eat, or how much you can eat, or how well you can work for us to have a bigger bowl. So next time, all of us will work collaboratively as a family, and this bowl of rice won't be so not as much for us to eat, but all of us can have more and maybe have individual plates. That's how I took it.
Dr. Fisk, to grow the economy, it has to be about job creation. So when you talk about job creation in the context where Mr. Cummings is talking about this board of rights and where he included the growth of the economy, this guy could be your guy in terms of job creation because you are all about jobs. You are all about the bread and butter issue, getting people back to work.
Well, the thing is, to some extent, I'm inclined to agree and also to disagree. Let's look at George Weah as a typical example. Okay, George Weah knows where his strength is, and George Weah is portraying, is focusing on his strength. Okay, what do I mean by that? You look across Liberia. This guy is going ahead and building soccer pitches all over the place. He just built one in West Point. What people don't even have job, but he built soccer pitch because that's what he knows. Okay, that's where his strength is. Okay, that's his brand, soccer. What is Mr. Cummings' brand? Mr. Cummings' brand is a corporate guy, jobs. Okay, what is Mr. Cummings doing in that direction to amplify? That's the word I was looking for. To amplify his brand. Nothing. Okay, what he's doing is commendable, but it's a disconnect at the same time. He's focusing more on education. It's important for Liberia, but it doesn't go along with his brand. His brand is job creation. Okay, and when you keep creating a lot of schools, you need to understand that people need to attend those schools. And for people to attend those schools, they got other people who have to pay for them to attend those schools. So what's going to happen is Mr. Cummings' solution to the problem that people abroad will be sending money to the people back home for them to attend his school? Because he also has to understand that if he keeps focusing on school, then he need to understand that people have to pay school fees for people to attend. Or is he going to make those schools free? So if he's not making the schools free, then he needs to amplify his brand. That's why I said the other day, and people took issue with it. Okay, you could open, and if you watch Mr. Cummings, I watched his very first debate. The only time he ever mentioned factory was when he talked about Firestone and the possibility of trying to convince them to open a condom factory in Liberia. Okay, so what I'm saying is that over 50% of people unemployed in Liberia is not just about talking jobs. It's not about farming, for instance, not about farming. Okay, because we already have produced in Liberia, but have not been harnessed. You're not harnessing the produce in Liberia with mechanized farming. You're harnessing the produce in Liberia with factories, agro-industry. It's agro-industry that's going to lead to massive job employment. That's what Liberia needs. And you're not going to solve that by saying, okay, fine. Let me say this. The person who's best positioned among all of the candidates to amplify jobs and job creation for Liberia is Mr. Cummings. But for some reason that we are yet to understand, he's not focused in that direction. And it's sad.
Idatus Ade, what distinguishes Cummings from Boyka in terms of job creation? We all know George Weah came. He was the world best and Africa's best, European best, and people said this guy is global. I mean, his presence as president of Liberia will instinctively attract investors. Coca-Cola is a global brand. You wake up on October 11 and Cummings is announced the next president of Liberia. Boom. Former Coca-Cola executive Bruce Reader carries the headline, CNN carries the headline, and you start to see the influx of investors. You may speak.
You know, Ashford, certainly this is not a conversation where I would like to get in which positions me to want to distinguish coming from Boyka and to come across as an attack, which is absolutely
That's not
not
an
what I
attack.
want to do. Because
That's not an
let,
attack.
let, let me finish. Let me finish. If you're asking for a distinction, obviously I should put Joseph Boyka in this ticket. So if you want to talk about distinction, I hire people and I relieve people of their jobs, considering what I do currently. So when someone comes to me and said, listen, I want to do this for your company, I look at your experience, I look at your education. So if I'm looking at your experience in that specific area and someone else that has more experience in that area, I'm inclined to choose that person. Now, I certainly understand that Mr. Cummings is a very fine gentleman, highly intellectual. He's made his mark on the international scene. But the truth remains that his skills are also transferable. But just political management of a country is just not on your business acumen. You also have to have the political skills to navigate your policies. To be able to have the society to buy in, that political skill has to be very relevant for the implementation of your policy as a leader. And unfortunately, we've quite frankly seen that Mr. Cummings, in his political attempt to become president, yet struggles in the polls among Liberians. Why? In all of his business acumen, his ability to sell Coca-Cola, he has not been able to sell himself enough to win the presidency of Liberia. Now, he's a very fine gentleman. I was often a supporter of a Cummings boycott ticket or a boycott Cummings ticket. But the truth remains, my friend, what distinguishes him from Mr. Boyka? Experience, international political experience, domestic experience, his contribution to his people in Liberia by virtue of his longevity in government, the change in society that we've seen. Liberia became an icon under Joseph Boyka for WADA. He was the first chairman of the West African Development Association, WADA. Under Joseph Boyka, we're exporting cocoa and coffee when Liberia was peaceful. So make no mistake, we are certainly representing an individual in spite of all of the criticism, which are quite frankly genuine, because he is the potential next president of Liberia. But the truth is, he's outmatched to none. And that's why people want him, and they're calling him Rescue 1 and Rescue 2. So there's a vast difference between the two.
What has been Joseph Boyka's contribution to Lofa County in terms of a job creation?
Well, certainly he's you know, like that reference that people often make, such as, oh, the caterpillars are broken down on the roads. They need to go and revise the story, the business relationship between McIntosh and the government. He was trying to facilitate that process that didn't work out well. It was not through his instrumentality. What has he done for the people of Lofa? Go interview the people of Lofa and they'll tell you.
I'm asking you.
The 7-mile road. All right, I'm telling you now. Wasonga, he helped to build that. Joseph Boyka was able to facilitate several schools being built under his leadership. Whilst in Lofa, like the youthful institution of the it's called the Fly. His collaboration with the Norwegian agency to take schools to different parts of Lofa County. He's made his mark for his people. And let's be very clear, he was never president of Liberia. He occupied a very simple position that served the country. So when people ask what has he done for Liberia, tremendously well.
He didn't have to be president of Liberia. I mean his
and that is why.
And just so you know, people from Lofa were asked, so are you people going to be voting for? Oh, I think we'll vote for the president because some of the things we have not seen roles before.
Breaking up.
We have never seen roles in some of these places, and Mr. Weah was able to bring some roles through the instrumentalities of his surrogates. I mean, Thomas Fowler and them. The people in Lofa are seeing those things. Idatus?
And Ashford, that is absolutely true. It is usually difficult to beat an incumbent, but make no mistake, the very people who saw that Thomas Fowler was dividing money in Monrovia to win the elections, Thomas Fowler was defeated by Darius Dillon with other dimes spent. So make no mistake, Liberians aren't as ignorant as people like to believe they are. They are very smart. They know what they want. You know, roads are very good. We all want roads in our country, but are you building the roads just because you have elections coming? And so you fast forwarding all these roads and doing all of these developments when you've been there for almost 6 years now? Where is your commitment to the people of Liberia when you harmonize their salaries? Lofa is not the only county to be won. Civil servants are watching. They're not stupid. You can't owe them for several months and then come elections, you want to fast forward the paycheck. The Liberian people are smarter than people like to believe they are. They don't make stupid decisions. They're very smart people. And in these times of politics, you have to appeal to their sense of reasoning and not the emotions to make a sound decision that would take them out of poverty and embrace their destiny for a future not too distant.
Mrs. Letty Brooks, Robert, Pastor Adam talked about the the international strength of Joseph Human boycott against Alexander Cummings. What say you?
Yeah, actually, I feel Mr. Cummings also has international connections. It's just that he's in a seat where he doesn't have the power to give them the green light to do what they can do. So at his election, or based on the verdict of the Liberian people, when they decide to take the better opportunities, more a vigorous person, or a more, what's the word, motivated person, someone who has more life, has more connection, has the know-how, where he has the when he has the mental of power, he will bring those people in to invest. He will make the corridor more suitable for investment. He will secure the port of entry, which is the RIA and the NPA, and he will make sure they're qualified people, they're competent people, not just people in it just for themselves, so that together we can rebuild Liberia. He's not just going to have people who are just his friends, or political people that help him win, but he will put the people that are most qualified, and through that, together, we will do, or he will do, a better Liberia based on his qualifications.
The CPP chairman, Musa Bility, said this weekend, Loaf of Grand Bassa would be a place to be. All roads will lead there. And he talked about Fixer 1 and Fixer 2. Uh, but I don't know if Dr. Fisk was paid for the little contribution he made, advice for the Cummings camp. He talked about why can it be JI, job and integrity. What Tell us about Fixer One and Fixer Two? I'm told folks from the CPP or the ANC camp are all excited about that they picked his running mate.
Talking to me?
I'm talking to Mrs. Roberts, then I will come to you.
Oh, well, based on, again, what we have seen, or what we know about the perspective, I would call her fake stress, is going to be a great combination, and it will be exciting for Liberia, despite this divide that they want to propagate. People don't know, when they have nothing to say about you, they come up with lame, descriptions. Country, Congo, elitist. When I sat today to prepare for the show, one of the thoughts that came to my mind was to say, it sounds to me when Liberians, not even Liberians, right here in America, when you articulate, when you can speak well, when you can, you know, present yourself among the who's who of America, they say you sound white. What does that mean? I studied, I went to school like you did, and I learned subject verb agreement, or whatever takes. I learned it. And now, because I'm doing better, or I sound better, you tell me I sound white. And this is the thing to say to our young, or not just young, any black person that has their head on their shoulder. And this is the same thing that is taken to Liberia. You know, you have a good formidable ticket, and you hear people saying, "Oh, it's an elitist ticket," or "It's Tonga ticket." Well, that's a lame excuse when you have people that are going to bring it. I am very excited. I'm looking forward. I wish I had a private jet. I too would be in Grand Bassa to listen to the announcement. And if you
That
do have a hookup, please let me know. I'll pack my bags.
Dr. Fisk, job and integrity. Suggestion you
No,
That's
make
right.
for Cummins.
of course. The thing is, you don't want to always be a follower. You want to be a leader, especially when it comes to ideas. Okay, ideas can be just about anything, right? So Mr. George Weah dance Buga, and the next thing Mr. Cummings dancing Buga too. Okay. Joseph Boaka and Kuhn refer to themselves as Rescue 1 and Rescue 2. The next thing Mr. Cummings and his people calling themselves Fixer 1 and Fixer 2. You don't always want to be following people's idea. You don't always want to be copying off people's ideas. So, I mean, I'm not a Cummings guy, but I think it's a unique name, JI Ticket. Okay. JI Ticket. That's jobs and integrity. Because now what you are doing is that now you are putting the other people in the corner, right? Because you are saying that as far as these are our strengths, we're going to create jobs and we have integrity. Okay. Kuhn and Boaka, they've been there for 12 years, so their integrity becomes questionable for a number of reasons. Mr. Weah integrity is questionable. Mr. Cummings, that's why I'm saying he's not amplifying his brand, because he's supposed to be the jobs guy. He's supposed to beginning to start leading on that issue, or at least be seen to be leading. He doesn't necessarily have to bring factories to Liberia, but he can be seen negotiating to get factories to Liberia. When, like somebody from CDC said, yeah, politics is optics. Okay, so I mean, people need to think out of the box. This is a very competitive thing, and as far as this whole thing about what ticket it
So are you questioning the integrity of Joseph Boyka because he served in government for 12 years? Is that what you're saying?
there's a release from the CDC that's on the web page. I think I distributed it. They are questioning, they are claiming that he took $20 million during his 12 years as president, and they're asking him to account for that. We know when Mr. Kuhn was announced, there was so much noise about his activities, especially with his clinic up in Nima, all that kind of stuff. And we know, okay, that the current legislature of Liberia takes home a greater annual pay than the United States legislature, Congress, which makes no sense because we are a bigger nation. Okay, so if you go with, instead of saying Fixer 1, Fixer 2, which is an offshoot of Rescue 1, Rescue 2, you also want to come in with something unique. Then you come in with a ticket, okay, a JI ticket. That's jobs and integrity. And you make it harder for your opponent, because now you have been able to define yourself rather allowing yourself to be defined within the light of your opposition. That's my argument.
Thank you. I will bring in Idatus at it, and following his response, he will give us his closing statement as we conclude.
Well, I certainly like my dearest Dr. Fisk sense of branding. My idea is better suited for the branding of the political party. I think Fixer 1, Fixer 2, it's a very good name in terms of the context of where Liberia finds herself under this leadership of President George Weah. And what he's intending to tell the Liberian people, if given an opportunity, he wants to fix the country for them. And so I don't think it's a bad, political branding at all, in my opinion. But the JI ticket, jobs and integrity, they're all advocating for jobs creation under this government that have seen job loss. So it's consistent with his vision for the country as well as the bowl of rice. But the JI ticket, integrity, like when you look at integrity, the Liberian people know you can't fool them. They know us for what they know us. And in politics, people brand people on the issue of integrity. What you may consider as integrity, the next person may not consider as integrity, because they can find something under the microscope of integrity to prove that you are not a person of integrity. So, I mean, I like your idea. I think it's fancy. Hopefully, when you're running, when you do decide to run for that senatorial position, you should choose that nomenclature for yourself, and hopefully I'll be there to support you. But the truth remains, Fixer 1, Fixer 2 is a very good idea for the political scene. But the other thing is, there are critics who are saying a fixer is somebody who uses illicit means to make things happen. So that is the political side of things. So one can counter against it, but when you look at the definition of a fixer, are you saying that you're going to use corrupt means to fix Liberia? No, that I don't think that's what Cummings is kind of saying. by calling himself Fixer One or Fixer Two. But the truth remains, since Senator Boyka remains the forerunner, I'm hoping that there will be opposition unity wherein Mr. Cummings will someday hold the hands of Joseph Yuma Boyka as he becomes the next president of Liberia.
Well, folks from Liberia, from the communist camp, are saying that ANC is the fastest growing party in Liberia. You saying Mr. Boyka is the full runner? He might not even make it to the second round. Don't you think so?
Well, I mean, every political party reserves the privilege and the right to toot their popularity. So I wouldn't knock them for that. I'll certainly ask for data to that effect as to whether or not his party is the fastest growing party in the country. That being said, such data should be made available. What I do know as we, stand now, that this gentleman, the Honorable Joseph Imam Boyka, remains the forerunner by virtue of all of the statistics we've looked at. And that is why people are constantly saying, listen, the focus is on him. And that's why he's even attacked the most. And people are asking for him to retire because for them, he's standing in the way. His popularity is obstructing their potential victory.
It is one thing to ask for data, but one mistake you make in politics can scare voters away from you, like the selection of Aircon and the association of Prince Johnson might play a very important role during these elections. Idatus?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, associations will always impact your ticket negatively or positively within the corridors of politics. Now, you as the political aspirant or those who are surrogates or supporters of these different tickets, they reserve the right to be able to sell their candidate in a way that promotes the dreams and aspirations of the Liberian people. And that is why we are advocating very seriously that a man of integrity, Joseph Boyka, ought to be given an opportunity to lead Liberia, even though he's been deprived on many fronts by his previous leader, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Can I respond to the Reverend?
Well, it was Mrs. Brooks' time. If she wants you to take her spot to respond.
No, but he talked to me directly, and I was not given the opportunity to respond.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
Of course. Okay. So, I did not. We need to understand this, okay? Ideas are what they are because they are unique, okay? And they test your intellectual strength, okay? Fixer One, Fixer Two, whether we like it or not, is an offshoot of Rescue One, Rescue Two. It's just that simple, okay? So what I'm saying is that instead of you walk in the shadow, in the light of Joseph Boyka, try to distinguish yourself, okay? And the best way you can distinguish yourself is to amplify your brand. The brand of Mr. Cummings is supposed to be job creation. So it makes extremely good sense that Mr. Cummings will emphasize his ability to create jobs. Another thing that is supposed to distinguish Cummings from the rest of the other people who've been in mainstream politics is the fact that he has a degree of integrity that has not been questioned. We've talked here on this program about numerous instances of other people whose integrity have been questioned. And one thing we have said, and at least I've said, is that, but you don't hear all these things about Cummings, okay? So, long story short, an acronym that captures everything, okay, becomes a JI ticket. Okay, so I don't know how it doesn't make sense, or let me say it expectantly. It shouldn't make sense to you just because you are not within the Cummings camp. Okay, but I don't think it is smart, okay, that they will want to go in under the light and under the shadow of Mr. Joseph Boyka. There's nothing wrong with it, but branding should be a unique initiative, especially along the lines of communication. Branding is always unique, always. That's what I would say.
Well, folks, again, that's all the time we have. I would go to Mrs. Brooks for her comment, and then she can probably give us her closing statement. We're out of time. Mrs. Brooks.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Garley. When Pastor Ade, was it Dr. Fitz that referred to Mr. Cummings not creating jobs but focusing on schools? Well, again, when you are just a regular citizen, you are limited. And knowing that he is a front runner or a possible, opposition to this current government, there's so many things they do to strangulate you. And as evidence of that, he has other businesses in the country that he keeps concealed because he doesn't want it to be targeted. But in the case of the schools, it's a STEM school, and he see there's a need to have kids to learn things while they're going to school, similar to what you have. I think one of you had suggested to have, rather than people going just out of college or going to college, they should go to a school that they can learn skills. So I think he's doing both. He's trying to educate people, teach them skills, while they're in primary and secondary school, learn about the computers. Don't wait to graduate. You don't have money to go to school. So yeah, the people that can afford it go to that school, and through that he's employing people who he pay life wage, not whatever you feel like or whenever you feel like. So, let's give him credit for something he's doing. When he has the mental power and he doesn't do those things, bring jobs in, then we can hold his feet to the fire as we do this current government.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Roberts. Okay, your closing statement, Dr. Fisk.
The only closing statement I have to say is that as we approach these elections, we just have to be careful, especially the government, with how it uses its muscle against ordinary citizens. And we also have to understand that at some point, as a nation, we have to embrace or we have to get rid of impunity by embracing those things that will reinforce law and order, because we want a democracy and want to get away at some point away from a pseudo democracy. Thank you for listening and watching.
Thank you. Well, now in the event when if Ambassador Boyka becomes president, will he tackle the old age problem of impunity?
Well, certainly the ambassador is on record of supporting the War and Economic Crimes Court. So that is no question. His vice president, his vice tender bearer is also on record for that. So that is a non-issue. And I stand here publicly to declare that if that is not implemented on this platform, we'll be able to call his attention to that. Having said that, I really want to clarify this issue about job creation. Investment in human capacity is job creation. Investment in human capacity is job creation. That is the greatest gift any country can have. So opening factory, that's short term. But long-term investment in human capacity creates jobs, creates innovation for citizens to create their own jobs. It is not the responsibility of political leaders to build factories that if they become president today, they will have a conflict of interest. So let's be very clear. Job creation is investment in human capacity. So whether Mr. Cummings builds schools and Joseph Boyka builds a school in Foya, that's job creation, because we're educating those boys and girls tomorrow so that they'll be good citizens.
I disagree because I can tell you.
But let me just. Let me
just respond to you quickly. I disagree.
No, but let me land, Dr. Fix, and then you can do your thing because you're good at that. So having said that, panelists, the fact that you're investing in young people for a futuristic Liberia sets the foundation that we as senior citizens potentially soon can be able to have a place to rest. So don't overlook that reality. Opening factory is a great idea, but that's short-term solution. But for a country that had endured 15 years of war and still feeling its effects, one of our best investments is in human capacity building. And I do not fault Mr. Cummings for doing that by opening the STEM school. I will not fault Mr. Joseph Boyka, the ambassador, for building a school in Foya. I sent you a video, Ashford, and I really hope that you play this video for the education of the Liberian people, of a young man who went to Foya and exposed this idea that he did nothing for Lofa County. So hopefully next week, or if you have time, you can play that video. But Dr. Fisk, your idea of job creation is great. And that is why he's looking at building an agro-industrial complex in Liberia where we can become self-sustainable, taking care of ourselves, Dr. Fisk. So please don't discount the idea of investing in education or human capacity building. Thank you.
So just in response, I never discounted the idea. What I've said is that there are other things, okay? And job creation by creating factories don't create any conflict of interest. I don't know where you're taking. I don't know where you wear that stuff from. Okay, but one thing I can tell you, do you have people that have master's degree and doctorate degree, even from the University of Liberia right now, who can find jobs? You have a lot of people who have gone through school. They can't find jobs. So all I'm saying is that, take for instance, once upon a time in the United States, there was no homeland security until there was a terrorist attack. And then the government innovated by creating the Department of Homeland Security. What's wrong with innovation? And the only thing that stifles innovation is when you have these ideas that cannot be proven. To say that government cannot be in the business. Whoever said that? It was some kind of UN report way back in the 80s that have since been debunked. So the government can be in the business of doing anything that's going to resurrect a dying economy like Liberia, even if it requires the creation of factories, because what the factory does is that it targets Liberian farmers. It gets them in a position to be able to empower their children, give them money to go to school, take care of their wives, and all those kinds of things. That's not short term. That's extremely long term. Disagree.
So I also want Dr. Fix to know that agriculture is job creation. Building schools is job creation.
Agriculture is job creation depending on what you do. If you open factories to harness what is being produced, then it becomes job creation. Because why? Now you are paying the farmers. You are incentivizing them by paying them. You are incentivizing them by paying them. If you just let them just grow the rice and then nobody is buying the rice, then of course, but if people are buying the rice, if they did 1 hectare 1 year, the next they'll do 2 hectares. On 3 hectares.
But your staple food is rice. So why wouldn't they buy the rice?
No,
that's job creation.
You will not buy the rice if it's not harnessed. You have machines that can clean it and bag it. Those are factories.
So Dr. Fisk, were you in Liberia when we were eating country rice before the war?
It's not preferable. You also have a risk factor of developing appendicitis from eating country rice. It needs to be cleaned.
The country rice I ate was clean.
Well,
in Liberia, the country we ate was even the very rice we eat today in America has the potential to cause appendicitis. It was clean, it was bagged. I ate that rice during due time, and it was very tasteful. And I was proud that Liberians could do that in the country. And when that hold on, and when that rice left the farm and got into a bag to be sold, that was job creation.
Okay, and
that was job creation.
And I continue to tell you the difference between factories and people sewing and putting bags is that factory can give you 1,000 production on an assembly line within a minute or two. And then when you have people, they will give you that same capacity in about a day or two. That's the difference.
And that's why.
No, you wait for me now. Now you wait for me. That's why the Industrial Revolution was extremely significant, and it propelled the West to be way ahead of Africa. So we need, as a continent, we need to be able to compete. And if I'm advocating for Liberia to be one of those countries that start the competition, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We need to be an innovative nation. We cannot say there was some principle that say that government can't do this, and because of that, government would not do this, especially if it sees the problem.
And Pastor Ada, you just mentioned that in the 80s you ate country rice, but he's talking about with us being in the 21st century now.
Exactly.
He's talking about factories where you can.
But that is why I'm also saying to you, I agro-industrial farming is factory-like. Agro-industrial farming creates even more jobs. Go and look at the report on Africa and African countries.
Agro-industrial farming. That's why I've been mechanized farming is what people have been
right. So Dr. Fisk, one second.
Mechanized farming and agro industries are two different things. Mechanized farming, what it means is that you are helping the farmers with modernized tools. That's not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating is that these people already know their trade. All we need to do is to incentivize them to do more. Okay, and you incentivize them by buying what they have produced, to put them in factory and sell them to the public. When you do that, you create more, you make Liberia self-sufficient in food, you boost the currency of the country. Okay, and if you tell me you can't do all of those things, you can't do all of those things in the interest of your people only because there's some report that came up from the UN way back in the 80s, then that's unfortunate. While the people are jobless, you're still looking at some 1980 report. No, you can't do that. That's not how a government functions. The government is supposed to address issues. The biggest issue facing Liberia is joblessness. The most significant thing that any government can do to be able to create massive job employment is to build factories all across Liberia. Nothing else does it.
All right, so that is fine, Dr. Fitz. I really want you to understand. You see, Firestone been exporting rubber out of Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing the government could have done is to encourage Firestone to create a plastic cup factory.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want you to see that those who are building schools, such as Mr. Cummings or Joseph Boyka, who built a school in Foya district, or any other political candidate like Tiawan Gonglo, who advocated, for people to be free, who didn't have the money, the pro lawyer. All of these guys did what they did to facilitate job creation. Now, the idea of subsistent existent farming is where a farmer grows food for him and his family to eat. In the Boyka's 5 pillars, agriculture is not on a subsistent existent skill. It's talking about a full-scale farming industrial revolution that will bring Liberia to a place of self-sustainability and create jobs. That's one of the ways throughout Africa that they are creating jobs through farming. It is one of the best trajectory for economic sustenance and survival on the continent. Go look at the research. It'll tell you farming is one of the biggest thing now. But thank you for that idea. I think it's great in many respects. But factories are also good.
I would just wrap up from my end by saying this, okay? It's just like the guy, the political aspirant we talked to last week, and we were asking him questions about the biggest problem facing Liberia, just said economic, right? It's a construct. Okay? So if you come aboard and say farming, it doesn't necessarily tell me that you have plans to create to build factories that will be able to harness the natural resource, those things that will be planted in Liberia. No, it doesn't necessarily tell me, because when you talk about farming, I can also think about farming along the lines of mechanized farming. Okay, and Samuel do talk about that sometime in the past about green revolution and the rest of it. That's where someone will even think. So if you want to be able to have a credible argument on the issue, then be very specific to say, okay, fine. Mr. Boyka is targeting the creation of factories, or is he not? If he is, fine. If he's not, which I know he is not, then of course it becomes a problem. Because why? People believe that there's some kind of economic theory that says that government cannot do what is right for its own people. That's not true. Okay, that theory was debunked a long time ago. Go and look at contemporary research.
Okay, gentlemen.
All that's garbage.
Okay, gentlemen, I want to say thank you. And we'll be back here tomorrow night, same time, same place. And enjoy the rest of the night, folks. Again,
so I didn't make my closing argument.
I thought you did.
No.
Come on, give Sister Letty, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Don't let these men dominate you.
I'm coming to put you in a back room. Even though you're the one in control. But no, Mr. Garley and Dr. Fitz and Pastor Ade, I know we talk about issues that are important as well, but I'm still stuck on our vice president not speaking to issues that are affecting the mothers of our country. Their hearts are hurting. I heard that lady today across Africa. She's not even in Liberia. And she's crying out for justice. That they have to go outside the country to look for help. We had a representative from here, the U.S., go to Liberia to inquire about bringing the War and Economics Crimes Court. Nobody knows what has happened to that. We didn't talk about the issue where 100,000 or it's 100 million cocaine were brought in our country and no one is held accountable. What country is
Correct.
this? What's going on
Yes,
with
Ashford, you just
our
talked about
people?
that.
Yeah.
And
It's just like, is this a country? Like, you see the thing. So who's responsible? Where are they going to look? Were there any fingerprints taken? Where are these people? Where are you going to find them when they left the country? So, some people say that it's an inside job. I tend to believe that.
Of course, an inside job. What you talking about? Okay, folks. Tomorrow night, same time, same place. Thank you as always, folks.
But Ashford, what is your closing on the $140 million drug issue that the people just left the country? What is your closing?
We're out of time, you guys. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Please pray
Don't
for
worry.
us. Pray for us.
Oh,
Amen. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon each one of you watching and listening to Bridge Radio International. We bless God for you. The Lord give his angel charge over you and keep you in all his ways. May no weapon formed prosper against you. Every tongue that rises up against you, let it be condemned. Above all, O God, we pray that even in our political limited discussions, that you will give us a leader after your own heart. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night. Shalom.
God willing, we'll be back
Shalom.
tomorrow night, same time, same place. Have a great night.